and welcome back to the 4th episode in my Halloween series here this month. Next week's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be kind of a surprise for the grand finale. So since it is my last week just sitting down with you and talking about ghost stories, I wanted to give you some of my personal experiences that I've had in the past. This spooky guy is helping us today. I wanted to tell you my own personal experience and things that I've had happen to me. I haven't really included that in any of the other videos, and since it is, like I said the last time, I thought it would be kind of fun and important to just give you kind of my background and see what you think about that. So Halloween is my very favorite holiday. If you have not figured out already by the fact that I'm doing a whole Halloween series here on my page, Halloween is my very favorite. I love spooky stuff, I love ghost stories, I love scary movies, I love costumes, I love all of it. My friends and I always do Halloween big. We always go out of our way, we have a good time, we do the costumes, we travel to see each other, and it's the most wonderful time of the year for me. Personally, I absolutely love everything about it. So part of that is all the spooky, scary stuff that goes along with it. And I haven't ever really had any experiences around Halloween time, surprisingly, even though that's kind of when it's all in your brain. But I kind of wanted to give you, mostly in chronological order of my life, a background of things that I have experienced ghost-wise, and just give you kind of a brief overview. So honestly, like the first experience I ever really had, when I was younger, my parents and I always went to Eureka Springs, and we went a lot. I love Eureka Springs. My parents got married there, I got married there, my grandparents got married there, and there's something about Eureka Springs that is just creepy. You know, they say that it has to do with the fact that the city was kind of built up with limestone. There's 2 levels of the city, if you've never been there, of the town, Eureka Springs, Arkansas. There's kind of 2 levels of it. There's tunnels. There's all of these buildings, these old buildings that everybody says is haunted. Great. I'm all for it. Sounds like my kind of spooky place. Love it. So when I was a kid, you know, we went on ghost tours when I was a teenager, and we went there all the time. People would constantly tell you ghost stories. So I just loved the history of all of that, and it was always something that was on my brain. And the most that I had ever experienced up until probably a few years ago was in Eureka Springs. You know, you'd feel some kind of creepy vibes. And I mean, you go down to a basement, you know it's creepy, you feel creepy vibes, but there's something about Eureka Springs that you can just feel it. You can feel a different energy there. And that was really my first experiences were all kind of in that area. And after that, you know, when I became a real estate agent, we started going into a lot of houses. And some of those houses felt that same way. There's just a vibe about some of these houses that you can't really explain it. It's not like I walked in and I was cold and it was just cold. You know, there's a feeling that you get goosebumps and you feel like you're not supposed to be there and you feel like something is not right. And I've had that happen in several houses, and although it's not really necessarily a reason not to buy a house for most people, for me it would be. So for instance, I went and previewed a house actually in my neighborhood, and I try to preview the vacant houses in my neighborhood so I know what things have sold for, and honestly I like to pick my neighbors. So if I can preview a house and see a house that I think somebody would absolutely love that I know, I would love to sell them that house so that they can be my neighbor. I mean, it just sounds like an ideal situation. So I previewed a house pretty close to our house. It's a few blocks away, and it's definitely an older home. You can tell maybe it was like there and then all the other houses were kind of built around it. There's a couple of those in this area. This was an old stone house, and I pass it all the time, still to this day, and I always think about this. But I just went in to preview this home, so when I preview, I'm generally by myself, but sometimes I will bring other people. Even if I don't bring other people, I always have someone on the phone, because I'm not going to be alone. You never know what you're going to find in these houses. You never know if there's anyone there, and so it's always just a good idea to have someone with you when you do that. So I was on the phone with my parents, and I walked into this house through the back door, that's where the lockbox was, and I stepped into like the foyer area or the little mudroom area, and I could see kind of the whole main floor, but that's as far as I got. I didn't explore the house to this day. I have no idea what the layout of the house is. I can tell you it was a pretty nice house. I mean, it was cute. It's a cute little cottage style house on the outside. Adorable. I mean, I was like, I'll buy this house if I like it on the inside, because on the outside it's adorable. But as soon as I walked in, I spoke to my mom and I said, I am not supposed to be here. This doesn't feel right. Something is wrong about this house. I don't know if there's someone here. I don't know. All the lights were off, but it was the middle of the day. I said, I think I should leave. And I did. I turned around, I left, and I walked out of that house. And I've had a few experiences like that, mostly with other people with me. And you have other people with you. Like if you're doing a showing, it doesn't scare you as bad. But when you're there alone, it can be scary. And, you know, with as many houses as we see in a day, of course we're going to have some bad vibes if you believe in that kind of thing. But the most unexplainable experience that I have ever had was once again in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Like I said, my husband and I got married there in April, and we stayed at the Crescent. We had our reception at the Crescent, and we stayed there. We stayed the night there. And our hotel room was really nice. I mean, it was beautiful. Everything there is beautiful. It's creepy, it's old, but you can tell that it's grand. And you know, the room was large. It was a beautiful room. So we we just got married. We came upstairs. We have our luggage with us, and we had just checked in, and we came up into our room, and we start kind of getting ready for the night. So, I mean, I'm in my wedding dress, trying to take my wedding dress off. You know, I'm trying to take my makeup off, brush my hair, you know, the usual get ready for bed kind of stuff. And first we're just kind of taking all of our, you know, get ready for bed stuff, our toothbrush, toothpaste, and all of that, and we're kind of taking turns taking stuff in and out of the bathroom. Well, Jackson goes into the bathroom, comes out, I go in, put my stuff up, come out. Mind you, we haven't like gone to the bathroom or anything yet. We haven't washed our hands, anything. We're just setting stuff, we're just putting stuff away at this point. It's a few minutes goes by of us kind of doing that, and then Jackson goes in there and he said, you left the water on, which, to be fair, if you have ever met me, does kind of sound like the kind of thing I would do. I'm not always paying that much attention. If my brain is somewhere else, which it sometimes is, I occasionally will forget to flush the toilet or, you know, turn the water off or whatever. So that kind of does sound like something that I would do. But at this case, I hadn't even turned the water on because I hadn't washed my hands. I hadn't done anything. Like, we just walked in the room when we started unpacking. We hadn't gotten ready for a shower or anything. So that kind of creeped us out, but both of us were just kind of thinking maybe I turned it on and didn't think about it and forgot, and we just moved on. And we were a little creeped out, obviously, but it was our wedding night. We were still really excited. We were happy. We got to see everybody. So anyway, we go to sleep. And when we go to sleep, Jackson says he woke up in the middle of the night. Mind you, I didn't hardly sleep. I never sleep when I stay at the Crescent because I'm constantly thinking I'm seeing something or hearing something or waiting to hear or see something. So I don't often sleep in the Crescent. But Jackson apparently caught me while I was asleep. I'd fallen asleep, and he said he got his phone and he picked it up, and his phone has Face ID. But it doesn't work in the dark. In the dark, you have to do your fingerprint ID or put in your code or whatever, because obviously your phone hasn't lit up, so it's not going to see your face. It's not going to unlock. And Jackson says he went to grab his phone and he didn't touch any buttons or anything, and it lit up and it unlocked by itself. So he had not used, he hadn't even touched the fingerprint thing, so he couldn't have unlocked his phone that way. And that really creeped him out. But once again, he was trying to make it through the night, so he just put his phone away and went back to sleep. But when we woke up that next morning, both of us looked at each other and we were like, we have no explanation for this. We can try to explain it away all we want, but I know I didn't turn that faucet on. I know that I didn't. I know I didn't turn that faucet on. I had not washed my hands yet. I hadn't done any of that yet. So there's absolutely no way we could have done that. And it really creeped us out. And that was a good wedding night story to tell our family and friends, I guess. So that's really the most experience I've ever had as far as ghosts. As much as I have thought about them and read ghost stories and watched scary movies and heard ghost stories and love hearing ghost stories, those are really the only experiences that I've ever had. But I did want to talk about one other thing. Hello everyone, it's just editing Chelsea here, and before I get into this next topic, it's very emotional for me and it's kind of a hard topic for me to talk about. So I just wanted to plug in if everybody's needing a little bit of breather. This is Olive's Halloween outfit of the week. I wanted to make sure I got it plugged in, but I thought now was a good time because in the future, here what you're about to listen to is kind of a touchy subject, so everyone please bear with me while I tell this story, but it's really an interesting one, and I thought it would be something you guys would want to hear about. So I hope you're enjoying it so far, and we'll get back into it. For my own privacy and for the privacy of the family involved, I'm not going to give any names or any details about this because I just don't think it's right, and I don't feel comfortable doing that for my own personal safety and my own personal privacy. But Jackson and I, for those of you who do not know, live in a murder house. So this house that I've been filming in and that I live in and have lived in for 2 years, unfortunately was the scene of a murder right before we moved in. And I just thought it would be kind of a good Halloween story to tell while we're here, while we're all together. And some of you do know this story. A lot of you have heard me talk about this. I'm not shy about telling this story, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. But basically what happened is there was a set of fiancés, and I will say boyfriend and girlfriend just so we can kind of clarify who's who in this story, and it'll be a little less confusing hopefully than just saying fiancé over and over, because obviously that's the same for both sides. But so we will say a couple lived here, and they had moved in. They really hadn't lived here for that long, so they moved in about October of 2016, and in January a really unfortunate event happened in our home. So the boyfriend we know now, something I'm assuming nobody really knew then, had prior charges for some violent offenses in another state. So I believe it was assault, maybe assault with a deadly weapon, something of that nature in a different state. So he was not supposed to own a gun. He was not supposed to own any of that. It's technically a violation. You're not supposed to have a gun in Missouri. Maybe in the United States, but I know at least in Missouri you're not supposed to have a gun if you have had a felony like that in the past. So somehow he did, and supposedly it was her gun, but either way he was not supposed to be in possession of it. And one night in January of 2017, they got into a fight. And I guess it was a pretty serious fight. From all reports that we've heard, they got into a fight over money, and really the only person who would be telling us that is him. And unfortunately they got into a fight over money, and he says that he blacked out and he shot her 3 to 4 times with her gun, what he says is her gun. I'm not sure that anybody ever found out that it was registered to her. But he shot her. He says he blacked out. He doesn't remember doing it. And when he came to and figured out kind of what had happened, I guess he went to go get a drink in the kitchen, and then he came back and he tried to kill himself. And unfortunately for him, I suppose, but really fortunately, I mean, he lived, so he failed to kill himself. And then he went down and he fell asleep in the bed, which from all the reports that we've heard, we don't actually know which bedroom she was shot in, but it was one of the bedrooms, and she had kind of been dragged, I guess, into the living room. There's a little bit of confusion on some of the reports, what's public knowledge, obviously, and I don't have any insider knowledge other than that. But she had been dragged, there were drag marks, and he had shot her. So he fails to kill himself, and he lays down and he takes a nap, which probably, I'm sure there was some brain damage there from trying to shoot himself in the head. So he lays down and he takes a nap, and when he wakes up, her mother is calling. He answers her phone and he tells her that he is sorry and that he has shot her and that she is dead, his fiance. So the mother, of course, immediately calls the cops because she wants to know kind of what happened. Cops come, there's a standoff. He answers the phone. from the cops, and they do some negotiation after a while. I believe he had kind of held her, unfortunately, hostage in the home, and when he finally exited the home and they came in, that's what they found. They found her here, and unfortunately there was nothing that they could do. She had already passed away. Especially, 3 to 4 gunshots to a person there's usually not much that you can do about that.
Around 4:30 this afternoon, we had a call from a citizen that there was a possible shooting at a residence behind me here. Officers converged on the area, and we enacted our normal protocols at that point and got a negotiation team en route as well. Shortly after 5 p.m., a phone call was made to the residence, and we contacted one of the parties that was involved in the disturbance. He came outside of the residence, and we took him into custody about 10 minutes after 5 p.m. The person that he lives at the residence with sustained life-threatening injuries and was deceased when we made entry, and he's been taken into custody and will be questioned for what occurred tonight. To the best of my knowledge, I think both people live there together. I think this is a domestic disturbance of some sort. Of course, this is early on. We're only an hour into the scene right now, and so we got out here at 4:30. Our detective division will come out here. We'll do a search warrant on the home and start doing some other protocols. So we will probably be out here for several hours tonight, yes.
So this happens in January. Jackson and I got under contract on the home in April. It was actually Easter that we got under contract on the home, and it was in April. And the following, I believe it was Tuesday, so that's Sunday. The following Tuesday, we get a text message from my mother-in-law that says, "Is this your address?" It was our address. They had released an article on, I believe it was the News Leader. And that's how we found out that we were buying a murder house. And Jackson and I, when we heard about this, both of us were absolutely shocked and devastated for what happened to this woman. And we kind of felt a responsibility to bring a happy life back into this home, and I'm so glad that we did. We absolutely love this home. We could not have gotten a better one for us, and obviously there's no bad vibes, in the home as it is. I will tell you, we saged the home as soon as we moved in. There was a lot of that kind of thing, covering our bases and making sure, and it was a little bit creepy when I would be over here kind of doing some work. Jackson was at work, and I had just graduated college, so I came over and kind of did some work on the home while he was at work and painted and all of that. It was a little creepy to know that had happened and that I was in the house alone, but it really wasn't too bad, and we haven't had any experiences or anything like that happen in the house. I do attribute some of that to saging it, but that could just be something that's in our heads as well. We don't really know, of course. There's not really scientific evidence for any of that, so but it does give me a little bit of peace of mind. And the boyfriend actually was in jail. He had trial not too long after we moved in, and he got 30 years in prison. So because he accepted a plea deal, he pleaded guilty and told them that he did do it. He ended up getting 30 years in prison rather than the life sentence that he could have gotten, because they dropped him from first-degree murder to second-degree murder. And I don't think they could really prove that anything was premeditated anyway. So that's kind of where they're at, and he can actually get out in about 25 years with, good behavior or whatever it is. But anyway, that's kind of the story of our home. So theoretically, we won't be living in this house in 23 years, I guess, at this point. But either way, it's a little scary to know that he will eventually be out of prison, but I don't know him personally. I don't know anything about him, and he's the only person that was here that night that can actually tell us what happened. So unfortunately, we kind of just have to believe his story and hope that it wasn't premeditated, and then it did just kind of come out of nowhere. But it's really sad to think about that something like that happened in our home. But I do, like I said, I feel a responsibility to make this a happy home. So, on the lighter side, that is really the end of our sitting down and chatting with each other about ghost stories. But next week, don't worry, we will be back. I will be back with the grand finale of this Halloween series. And like I said, it's going to be something a little bit different, but I think you guys are really going to like it. Thank you everyone for staying to the end of this video, and I am so excited for you to see what comes up next week as well in our grand finale. I really appreciate everybody's support on all of this. It's been really, really fun for me, honestly, to find all these ghost stories and tell them to you. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it just as much as I have, and I will see you next week for our grand finale. Bye!